Welcome to the premiere, the place where you always find what to watch without wasting time searching. Today we are looking at 20 science fiction movies from 2026 that are already making noise. Biotech horror, space missions, artificial intelligence, post-apocalyptic worlds, invasions, parallel universes, and futuristic action with some truly wild ideas. This is not a list made only of spaceships and robots. We are also including movies where science fiction blends with horror, dark fantasy, survival, and thriller, because 2026 is bringing strange, intense, and very different stories. Stay until the end, because the number one pick is one of those movies that can hook viewers fast if they want action, tension, and an impossible threat. Before we begin, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. That helps us keep bringing more movie, series, and release recommendations, so you always know what to watch. Number 20. The Cure. An adopted teenage girl lives with a mysterious illness that nobody seems willing to explain completely. Her home has money, science, doctors, and prepared answers. But the more she watches her parents, the more she feels she is being protected like an experiment, not loved like a daughter. The fear is not only in the sickness, it is in realizing that her own blood may be worth more than her freedom. The Cure works because it mixes family horror with laboratory science. It does not need alien invasions or giant spaceships to feel dangerous. A beautiful house, calm adults, and a young woman slowly discovering that everything she was told about her body may be a convenient lie are enough. If your family saved you only to use you, escaping is no longer rebellion, it becomes survival. That is why it belongs here. It is small-scale science fiction, but the idea is sharp. A future where medicine does not save everyone equally, and where one body can become a resource for people with money and power. Number 19. Affection. A woman wakes up again and again without recognizing the house she lives in, the man who claims to be her husband, or the little girl who keeps calling her mom. Every reset erases another piece of certainty, and the most disturbing part is that the people around her seem to know more than they are willing to say. Memory stops being a safe place and becomes a prison that locks again every time she opens her eyes. The hook in affection is the uncomfortable question at the center. How do you trust the life everyone tells you is yours when your own mind rejects it like a scene from someone else's story? The horror comes from glances, silence, and the feeling that identity can break with one single morning. This is not about monsters running through hallways. It is about not knowing if your family is real, if your pain belongs to you, or if someone is using your weakness to keep control. If the mystery holds, this can be one of those smaller movies that stay in your head because it plays with a very human fear, losing the only proof we have of who we are. Number 18. Iron Lung. A pilot descends in a small submarine-like vessel into an ocean of blood on a distant moon. There is no large crew, no wide window to admire the landscape, and no easy exit if something goes wrong. There is only an almost absurd mission: navigate an impossible place, take photographs, listen to sounds that should not be there, and trust a machine that feels far too fragile to keep him alive. Iron Lung has one major advantage as science fiction horror: claustrophobia. Being trapped under a Red Sea, unable to see clearly what moves outside, turns every sound into a threat. And because it comes from a cult video game, it already has an audience that understands the fear is not about showing everything. It is about making you imagine the worst, while oxygen, metal, and darkness become part of the pressure. It may not be the biggest movie on the list, but it can be one of the most memorable if it uses its concept well. A trip to the bottom of something that does not feel like water, does not feel natural, and definitely does not want you to come back. Number 17. Storm Rider, Legend of Hammerhead. In a coastal world damaged by giant storms, the Legend of Hammerhead is not just a story used to scare children. It is a possibility of resistance. After years in hiding, the smuggler is pulled back into a conflict between factions hunting for an energy artifact that could shift the balance of power. The ocean is not just scenery. It is border, threat, and battlefield. What makes Storm Rider, Legend of Hammerhead interesting is that it tries to build its own world with protected cities, impossible storms, races, rebels, and technology that feels almost mythical. It can attract viewers who enjoy adventures where science fiction is not clean and shiny, but wet, rusty, and dangerous. The key is making the world clear fast. Who controls the weather, who lives behind the walls, and who is brave enough to cross the storm when everyone else chooses to obey? If the visuals support the concept, this can be a curious option for anyone looking for adventure, a new franchise flavor, and the kind of mythology that could grow beyond one movie. Number 16. Hokum. A horror writer travels to a remote inn in Ireland for a private reason, to scatter his parents' ashes. But the place does not feel like shelter. The hallways seem to remember too much, the people working there never explain enough. And an old legend about a witch turns the visit into something stranger with every step. Hokum is not classic science fiction, but it fits that corner where the strange begins to feel like an alternate reality. The appeal is atmosphere. Rain, old wood, closed rooms, and a level of isolation that makes every sound feel intentional. Adam Scott can bring an interesting contrast, because he is not a clean hero arriving to solve the mystery. He is tired, uncomfortable, carrying grief, and his imagination may not help once the hotel begins to twist around him. For the premiere viewers, this can work as a weird horror recommendation. Not only easy jump scares, but a place that seems ready to swallow anyone who enters, hoping to say goodbye to the past. Number 15. Gale. Yellow Brick Road. Years after Dorothy escaped from Oz, the story no longer sounds like a children's tale. Her granddaughter grows up surrounded by warnings, family silence, and the suspicion that the Yellow Brick Road was not an innocent fantasy, but a door to something that still remembers her name. When darkness begins to move again, Oz stops feeling magical and starts feeling like an inherited nightmare. The strength of Gale. Yellow Brick Road is taking a recognizable icon and staining it with horror. Oz always had something strange beneath the color, and this version pushes that strangeness toward witches, broken creatures, family memory, and trauma. The key is making it feel like more than a famous story turned violent. It needs to feel like a fantasy world that rotted over time and is now calling a new generation back. This can work for viewers who want dark fantasy with unsettling images, because there is something fascinating about seeing a place everyone knows transformed into a threat. Nostalgia is not here to comfort you. It is here to chase you down the road. Number 14. The Dresden Sun. In a near future where technological systems can no longer be fully trusted, a solar anomaly begins interfering with cities, corporations, and secret projects. At the same time, an operation involving an object known as the Sphere opens the door to conspiracies, impossible energy, and powerful people willing to use science as a weapon. The Dresden Sun has the flavor of independent science fiction that does not try to compete only through size, but through concept. There are mercenaries, scientists, corporations, global failures, and the feeling that reality may be manipulated by something nobody completely controls. What makes it interesting is the mix of heist thriller, energy science, technology, and corporate power. If the mystery stays clear, it can hook viewers who enjoy stories where every character has an agenda and every experiment may become too expensive to survive. It may not be for everyone, but it is for the viewer who wants darker science fiction with conspiracy, industrial danger, and the classic question, what happens when a company touches a force it does not understand? Number 13. In the Blink of an Eye. 3 stories separated by thousands of years connect through one question. Why do we keep moving forward when everything feels fragile? A prehistoric family tries to survive a harsh world, a present-day scientist searches for answers about existence, and a future mission travels toward the Kepler system with the hope that humanity still has something left to discover. In the Blink of an Eye is the kind of science fiction movie that does not seem interested in gunfights or chases, but in looking at life from a distance. The scale is enormous, but the emotion can be intimate. The strength is connecting different eras to remind us that the human impulse to protect, explore, and survive did not begin with technology. It comes from far earlier. If Andrew Stanton handles that mix of wonder and emotion well, this can be a special recommendation for anyone looking for more contemplative sci-fi. The hook here is not what monster appears, it is something simpler and bigger, watching humanity as a line that breaks, rises again, and keeps looking at the stars. Number 12. Mortal Kombat II. The champions return, but this time the promise is more direct. Tournament, realms at war, and fighters entering the arena not to look cool, but to survive. Johnny Cage joins the group with the ego, humor, and charisma many fans wanted to see, while Shao Kahn's threat pushes the story toward a much larger conflict for Earthrealm. Mortal Kombat 2 can work because audiences know exactly what they are coming for. Clear fights, recognizable powers, fatalities, iconic characters, and a tone that does not apologize for being brutal. The first movie left many viewers wanting more tournament and more video game mythology. This sequel has the chance to go straight into that. The key is not making everything elegant. The key is making it hit hard. Every fight needs style, every character needs presence, and fans need to feel that they are finally watching the spectacle they imagined while playing. If it understands its own identity, this can be one of the year's most entertaining fantasy action movies. It does not need to hide what it is, it needs to embrace the punch. Number 11. Worldbreaker. 5 years after a tear-in-reality unleashed creatures from another dimension, a father hides his daughter on a remote island and trains her to survive. He does not do it out of simple paranoia. He knows the world no longer works by normal rules, but when danger gets close again, the refuge stops being a hiding place and becomes a test. Worldbreaker has a simple and effective premise: monsters from another dimension, an isolated family, and a threat that eventually finds every safe place. The emotion does not come only from the creatures, but from watching a father prepare his daughter for a world no child should have to understand. Milla Jovovich and Luke Evans give familiar faces to an action survival story that can work well for viewers who want something direct, tense, fast, and apocalyptic. The key is the bond. If the movie makes that relationship matter, every attack hits harder, because this is not only about surviving the end of the world, it is about deciding what kind of person remains after it. Number 10. Project Hail Mary. Ryland Grace wakes up alone on a spacecraft, with no clear memory of who he is or why he is so far from Earth. Little by little, he realizes this is not just another mission. The future of the planet depends on solving an impossible problem, a threat that is killing the sun and could leave humanity without hope. Project Hail Mary has a huge advantage. It combines science, humor, and emotion without losing its sense of adventure. The story comes from Andy Weir, so science does not feel like a cold wall. It feels like a human puzzle. Ryan Gosling can carry that tone of a lost, frightened, intelligent man forced to solve step by step something nobody should face alone. And the best part is that the film is not only about space survival, it also points toward an unexpected friendship that can make a massive mission feel personal. That is why it lands in the upper half of the list. It has blockbuster scale, but also heart. One ship, one science teacher, one desperate mission, and the possibility that hope may appear exactly where nobody expected to find it. Number 9. Greenland 2. Migration. The Garrity family survives the impact that changed the planet, but leaving the bunker does not mean returning to normal. Outside, there are broken roads, limited resources, weakened governments, and people trying to move through a world where every decision could be the last. Migration is not an adventure, it is a desperate necessity. Greenland 2. Migration works because the first movie did not sell only destruction. It sold a family trying not to fall apart while everything else collapsed. This sequel can expand the scale without losing that emotional center. Gerard Butler and Morena Baccarin return to a story where effects matter, but what keeps the viewer inside is the question of how far a parent will go when protecting a child means crossing a broken planet. There is disaster, but also exhaustion, fear, hunger, and people who no longer trust anyone. If it keeps that balance, it can be a strong recommendation for viewers who want post-apocalyptic tension without losing the family heart. The end of the world is scarier when you still have something to lose. Number 8. 28 years later. The Bone Temple. Decades after the outbreak, the world no longer experiences horror as a new emergency. It lives with it as routine. The infected remain a threat, but survivors have also learned to become dangerous, creating their own rules and turning fear into religion, violence, or daily survival. In that broken landscape, looking for answers can be as deadly as running from a horde. 28 years later. The Bone Temple has power because this saga has always felt dirtier and more nervous than many infected stories. It is not only about bodies running, it is about what happens to a society when rage, isolation, and loss last too long. Nia DaCosta and Alex Garland can push the story into stranger territory, where the human danger weighs as much as the viral one. The title suggests the world was not only destroyed, it built new symbols around that destruction. For fans of post-apocalyptic horror, the hook is clear. Surviving the first outbreak is not enough. The truly terrifying part is discovering what humanity becomes after so many years of survival. Number 7. Operation Taco. Gary's. Two brothers head into a road trip that should be awkward, messy, and familiar, but it turns into a global conspiracy filled with fast food, chases, and threats nobody will believe. What begins as brotherly chaos gets completely out of control when they discover that something as ordinary as a taco chain may be hiding an alien invasion. Operation Taco Gary's looks like the weirdest and lightest option on the list, but that may be exactly why it stands out. Not every science fiction movie has to speak solemnly about the fate of humanity. Sometimes the hook is mixing alien paranoia, absurd humor, and characters who do not seem ready to solve their own problems, much less save the planet. If the chemistry between the brothers works, the chaos can become part of the charm. This is a recommendation for viewers who want sci-fi with the rhythm of a road comedy, conspiracy, jokes, weapons that should not be there, and the feeling that the world might end in the parking lot of a restaurant. Number 6. The Mummy. A family gets their daughter back after 8 years missing in the desert, but her return does not bring peace. Something came back with her, or maybe something returned her in a way nobody is ready to accept. What should be a miraculous reunion begins to fill with strange signs, physical fear, and an ancient presence turning the home into contaminated territory. Lee Cronin's The Mummy does not seem interested in repeating the classic adventure formula of tombs, treasure, and light chases. This version leans into horror, body terror, possession, family trauma, and the feeling of an ancient evil invading modern spaces. That may be the most interesting part, because it takes a familiar brand and pushes it towards something nastier, more visceral, and closer to domestic horror than matinee adventure. After Evil Dead Rise, Cronin knows how to make a trapped family feel genuinely unsafe. It may divide audiences, but as a recommendation, it has a strong hook, a mummy story that does not aim for cozy nostalgia, but for discomfort, cold fear, and the question of what you would do if the person you love returned, but did not return alone. Number 5. Cold storage. A mutating fungus escapes from a facility where it should never have awakened, and 2 ordinary employees become trapped in a night where a biological disaster could go global. This is not an elegant or clean threat. It is alive, adaptable, disgusting, and able to turn a normal workplace into ground zero for catastrophe. Cold storage has strong potential because biological horror works well when it feels close. The idea of an organism that spreads, learns, and contaminates everything it touches connects with very current fears. Forgotten laboratories, corporations underestimating risks, and normal people forced to face something they do not understand and cannot control. The dark comedy tone can also keep the movie from feeling heavy, making it nervous, grotesque, and entertaining. Joe Keery, Georgina Campbell, and Liam Neeson bring a curious mix of youth, chaos, and experience. The key is making the fungus more than a monster. It needs to feel like a threat that thinks with its body. Sticky science fiction, black humor, and one night where every open door could be a terrible idea. Number 4. Good luck. Have fun. Don't die. A mysterious man appears in a diner and starts recruiting strangers for a mission that sounds impossible. Stop a rogue artificial intelligence capable of destroying the world. The problem is that he does not sound like he is speaking in theory. He comes from the future, he knows too much, and he believes this group of ordinary people may be able to change something before it is too late. Good luck. Have Fun, Don't Die stands out because it mixes science fiction with chaotic comedy. Gore Verbinski has a very particular sense for strange worlds, overwhelmed characters, and adventures that feel as if someone broke the rules of the game. The Hook here is not a perfect hero, but an improvised group thrown into a war against an AI that may have already won too many times. If the film balances humor, technological paranoia, and time travel, it can become one of those recommendations that surprises because it does not feel like the typical serious end-of-the-world movie. The idea is attractive because it speaks to something current without becoming solemn. The fear that technology may advance faster than our ability to understand it, told through people who are barely trying to survive the night. Number 3. Redux Redux. Irene Kelly travels through parallel universes to find, again and again, the man who murdered her daughter. In each reality, she can repeat the revenge, but every repetition takes something from her. What first looks like justice begins turning into an obsession that erases the line between punishing the guilty and staying trapped forever in the same pain. Redux has one of the strongest ideas on the entire list because it uses science fiction to talk about grief. The multiverse here is not just spectacle and not an excuse for cameos, it is an emotional trap. If you can find the person responsible for your tragedy in endless versions, when do you stop? When does one death stop being repair and become addiction? That question can make a small movie feel much stronger, because the travel between realities matters less than the internal damage of someone who does not know how to say goodbye. That is why it ranks so high. The premise is simple, harsh, and addictive. Hunt the same killer across different worlds until revenge no longer knows if it is punishing him or destroying you. Number 2. Mercy. In a near future, a detective accused of murdering his wife faces a justice system controlled by artificial intelligence. He has 90 minutes to prove his innocence to a judge that feels no mercy, does not get tired, does not doubt like a human being, and processes every detail as if a person's life could be reduced to probabilities. Mercy hits hard because it touches a very current fear, handing human decisions to machines that appear objective, but may also be built on bias, surveillance, and mistakes nobody can argue with. Chris Pratt is trapped in a countdown where every piece of evidence, every camera, and every data point can save him or push him closer to death. Rebecca Ferguson, as the AI voice, gives the threat a special coldness because there is no villain screaming, there is a system calmly deciding whether you deserve to live. Even if the movie divides opinions, the concept is perfect for a 2026 sci-fi ranking. Automated justice, limited time, and the uncomfortable question of what happens when proving you are innocent no longer depends on convincing a person, but an algorithm. Number 1. War Machine. The final recruits of a brutal special operations program face a test meant to measure discipline, endurance, and teamwork. But the training becomes a nightmare when a deadly force from beyond this world appears in the field and starts hunting them. With no communications, no clear support, and limited resources, the mission stops being about passing an evaluation and becomes survival. War Machine takes the number 1 spot because it combines something extremely effective, easy to understand military action with a science fiction threat. Alan Ritchson works very well in physical roles, and the idea of trained soldiers discovering that no rule in the manual works against an unknown machine or creature has an immediate hook. It is Predator with extreme training energy. It is group survival, but with the clock running and the feeling that the enemy does not get tired, does not negotiate, and does not stop. It also has a major advantage: Netflix. That means fast access, global conversation, and an easy path for many viewers to discover it without waiting for a theater. If you want direct, intense, muscular sci-fi action, this is one of the 2026 options most likely to hook viewers from the first minute. That is why we close with War Machine. It does not need to overcomplicate things. One team trapped, one impossible threat, and one clear warning that whatever they found was not part of the training. And that was everything here on the premiere. Now tell me in the comments which of these 2026 science fiction movies caught your attention the most, and which one you think could become the biggest surprise of the year. If you enjoyed this ranking, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next videos with recommendations, new releases, and lists that help you find what to watch without wasting time searching. See you in the next video.